Alrighty, guys. I have been super busy recently. I apologize for not making a video on Amaterasu, I think that was who came out. Um, I didn't make a video on her. She was okay, not worth getting, but I'm sorry I didn't make one for her. I uh I got sick and then there was spending the last few days with my family in Korea. And then I came back. I had 2 days to clean my house, um, obtain my ferrets from the vet that they were staying at, and then prepare for school. And then the semester started, and all of my teachers dropped lots of homework. So I'm doing my best to give you guys updates. I wanted to make some other videos too. Um, I wanted to make a video on whether or not you should play Unison League in 2026. I wanted to make a new video going over each class um, as well in PvP, PvE, and guild battle in 2026 as well. So you'll hopefully see some more videos and some more updated information since a lot of things have changed since uni abilities have come out. I figured I need to remake those, and I figured I'd also make them like once every 6 months anyway, because the game does kind of change and shift. But yeah, let's talk about this new spawn. It's pretty cheap, honestly. So it's 50, then 50, then 40, then 35, then 25. So that's 200 gems total. And it takes about 3 rotations to get the monsters and about 1 rotation, maybe 2 rotations to get some of the gear. We're going to talk about the gear. I think the gear is absolutely worth getting for basically everyone. There's almost no reason why anyone shouldn't be getting this gear. So that's exciting, and we're going to talk about it. So, starting off with Mika, she hits twice. So she hits for physical 3 times, then magical for 3 times, penetrates in both, which is interesting. She applies allied field protection, which is excellent, especially nowadays, especially, I just said especially twice. Wow. Uh, because of Pandora and the oppression of Pandora, having allied field protection is really, really critical in guild battles. It does nothing in PvP and hardly anything in Colosseum, but it's really nice in guild battles. Elevation is fantastic and it matches with Absolute. So this is, I think, the second monster that's come out with this combo. The first one was Wind Valk, and the 44 cost Wind Valk, and she is still one of the best monsters in the game because of this combo. So that's good. Rage and Serenity. Totally unnecessary. You could just give Dawn, but the Serenity is actually really interesting. I really like Serenity because when it expires, you get 100% uni. So it ensures uni. And then also a bubble, not not the good bubble, but a bubble. So yeah. Of course, the best bubble is still barracks for damage. For pretty much everything, it's the best bubble. Savior element is a fantastic element, just in general, for both PvP, guild battles, um, and PvE. It's good for everything. So that's also good. She applies a new maximum to cost. Now, is this necessary? I'm going to say no. This is pretty much irrelevant. However, as Unison League has progressed as a game, the amount of cost required for abilities has increased substantially. If you look at the early parts of Unison League, most of the abilities cost around 10. In fact, I remember Dual Strike being an unbelievably expensive ability at the time. It was like 18 cost. It was a soldier ability. It hits twice. And we've gotten more and more to the point where now some abilities are 30 cost. It is potentially heading in the direction where single abilities could cost upwards of 50 if they start incorporating unison abilities more, and having really, really high cost abilities like that may force players to have a higher maximum. So right now, totally unnecessary. Maybe in the future, it will be necessary. But we're going to have to see. So that's interesting, though. 40, 40k stats is horrible. We just had 50k stats. I don't know why we're going backwards, but that's bad. The increased stats by 80%. There's not a lot of monsters that do this anymore. Most of the time you'd want it to give you your 200% buff, which is the current maximum. So I don't really think it's not a bad thing. Let me just start off by saying that it's definitely not a bad thing. Having 80% buff is actually pretty huge just in general. Upgrading to 200 buff, of course, is way, way better. But having no 80% buff is bad. So this monster is nice because it doesn't give you a full buff, but it does give you a nice little kick if you're not throwing any monsters that are giving you 200% buff. So it's not that I dislike this. Miasma, that's not really useful. And then time and star defense, that's actually really good. 700 is a little bit on the low side. Maybe 800 would have been preferential. But it's not a bad monster. I think overall this monster is interesting. In guild battles, there's not enough uni gain on your side. However, she does penetrate, so maybe she could kill. She's a time monster, though, so you have to take into account the fact that you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage as time, because light and dark both counter you, and it's really, really hard to do great, consistent damage with time. This, it's a nice filler monster. I would say that this is for guild battles, it's probably a 7 out of 10 total monster for a time, light, dark, star throw specifically. Now, if we're talking about in general for guild battles, if you're throwing this like in the first round, or you're not throwing time, light, dark, star, and you're just throwing this because you have a uni, then this uni is probably like 5 out of 10 for just a general throw as a backline person. And then as a frontline treasure hunter, also probably not that great. Probably like a 4 out of 10. For PvE, I like this monster a lot more. I would rank this monster probably an 8 out of 10 for PvE, just all across the board. And then I would also say for PvP, so something like Kahlo or 1v1s or 3v3s or something like that, this monster doesn't give penetration. So yeah, that's basically an instant really low total. I'd probably give her a 3 out of 10. So she hits for her abilities hit for penetration, but she doesn't apply penetration to you. And she's a a time monster, so she's not going to be killing anyway. Let's go on to Durg. Increased unison priority. So this is one of the ones where it has the light bars around it, and it goes first regardless of if you win or lose. So let's see if it's any good. Gives you 100% cost. Remember, each level for this something like this is going to be giving you an additional amount, so you can get up to level 5. So this gives 100 cost. Applies great counter heal. That is garbage. You can basically just throw that in the trash. It never does anything. All allies increases status ailment resistance. So, I mean, 60 is not great, but it's not bad. All allies applies buff removal resistance, karma, preventing karma, and any other buff removal effect. There's not a lot of monsters that do this, so at least not in the modern age. There's a lot of old monsters that do this, but I like where this monster's going. Applies Fortify, which is also really interesting. Applies Grace, which I hesitate because Grace is just such a strange ability in the current age. It's basically only good in like super niche situations, in my opinion. I am not a huge fan of Grace on this monster. I'd rather see something else, maybe like Serenity or Dawn or something like that. But I guess Grace is fine. Azure King Crest. This is one of the good crests that give 100% to everybody. So that's good. And then also this one increases your status ailment resistance by 50%. If I remember correctly as well, this is the first prio monster ever to give a crest. So that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. The status ailment resistance boost of 45. I believe this is a new high. I can't remember what the anniversary monsters were, but I'm pretty sure it was either 40 or 45. So this is good though. A lot of people, especially nowadays, like having status ailment resistance. It's one of my favorites for basically everything. So it's a nice all-arounder. 40k again, pretty garbage. Applies Miracle. There are not a lot of monsters that apply Miracle, and there are even fewer monsters that apply both Miracle and Fortify. I have one, I believe, Free Ren, and oh no, she doesn't apply Fortify, I don't think. Huh. Well, it's a really interesting combination. It basically means that your team is almost invincible. Almost being the key word. There's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't be invincible. For example, if somebody uses a time slice monster and also hits you really, really hard, this Fortify will get erased by a single monster, and then you just have the Miracle. But to be fair, Miracle is one of the best, if not the best, defensive things in the game. Your CP is the highest thing, and Miracle can only apply to you once. So Miracle is very similar to Resurrection. Resurrection can apply to you an infinite number of times. Miracle can only proc once per game. So if you're like in a single match, then once that match is over, you can apply it to the next match, whatever it is, like a 1v1 or a guild battle or a quest or whatever. And it increases, it resets your entire HP bar, and then it also leaves you with 100% CP as well, in the cases where you have CP, if I remember correctly. It's really, really powerful. But there's not a lot of monsters that give this, and I can't think of any monsters that give this as a prio monster. I think that's quite rare. Now, I know a lot of defensive monsters that give this, but they're hard. None of the ones that I can think of are prio monsters. So this is pretty interesting. Increases fire element attack by 3, confuse and prohibit unison resistance by 70. So this last one's really, really good, but we don't have any uni defense on this monster. And this is extremely tragic because this monster is fantastic for guild battles and PvP matches. If a bunch of people are all throwing Uni at once, this monster is fantastic. It gives your team extra tankiness because of Crest. It gives your team extra HP because of Grace. It gives you Fortify so that you can't get one shot. It gives you removal resistance. It gives you 100 cost. Hopefully after the Uni is over, you will still have 100 cost. When you main slot this, you get your status ailment resistance boost. So you want to put it in the, like, not only is it a good monster to throw, but you want to put it in your first slot for a lot of players. And then Applies Miracle is incredible. Plus the Prohibit Unison resistance. There's a lot of monsters that have been coming out recently that have really, really high Prohibit Unison. And so you want to stack Prohibit Unison resistance. So overall, this monster is fantastic for PvP and for guild battles. Especially when lots of people are throwing monsters. The only thing this monster doesn't do that I would want it to do is to protect the allied field. That's the only thing that I'm disappointed in. But honestly, that would be probably broken. I think that this monster for a lot of players is going to be really, really high up on the tier list. I would not recommend this for free to play or like not free to play players, but players that are newer to the game. The reason why is I recommend players who are newer to the game to get a good buff monster. Neither of these monsters are good buff monsters. This monster is also not great for newer players. So I wouldn't recommend getting it. And this one isn't either. But I would still rank this probably around an 8 or a 9 out of 10 in guild battles. Probably around a 6 or 7 out of 10 for PvP. And then for PvE, this is a really, really interesting monster. And it gives a ton of unique buffs. And so for PvE, I'm going to rank this monster a 9 out of 10, potentially a 10 out of 10. It's not because this monster gives a ton of buffs. This is a specific monster that gives you defensive things. So for really, really difficult quests or for quests that are going to go for a long time, this is a really, really good monster to throw. However, with that being said, even though I gave it a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 in PvE, in questing, it is still a requirement that your team gives you strong buffs. If your team or you are solo questing or whatever, if you don't have good offensive buffs with this monster instantly drops to like a 3 out of 10. The reason why I'm giving it such a high rating in PvE is specifically because it gives you tons of buffs that normal monsters don't. So, for example, one of the reasons why I didn't like the Dark Valk that came out most recently was because that monster gave you tons of buffs that other monsters will give. So if you have two monsters that are giving the exact same buff, then you're not getting anything, right? So for example, just for me, so if I throw Fern, she gives 180 buff. And if somebody else throws, where is Valk? Right here. If somebody else throws Valk, also gives 180 buff. So you have to keep in mind that a lot of the top monsters in all of questing will give you repeatable buffs. And in my opinion, that is a bad thing because there's no point in throwing 10 Valks. You're getting the same exact buff. But this monster, the reason why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 is because it gives super unique buffs. Hardly any monsters give Fortify. Hardly any monsters give good crests. Hardly any monsters give Miracle. Hardly any monsters give debuff removal and status ailment resistance. There's a lot of things that are some really nice, like, damn, that's good, that a lot of monsters don't give. Let's talk about the weapons. These weapons, in my opinion, well, let's just talk about it. So instantly a 5XL plus. They give you 10 cost. Remember, you need cost and uni nowadays. And 10 is on the low side. Restores HP when dealing damage. Increases physical and magic ability success value by M, which is 20%. And then maxes out for 3 on the type, the weapon type, and maxes out at 6XL and maxes out at XL. So overall, this proc, in my opinion, is around a 6 or 7 out of 10. It fills a most basic need for new players. This is also around a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's not an incredibly good proc. For new players, I always recommend that they focus on good spawns with good monsters and good defensive things. You need all of them because your gear requirements are all over the place when you're starting. This is not a great proc, and it won't be taking you for the long haul. So unfortunately, this is not something that's required. Let's talk about the defense gear. So this is probably one of the only instances in the entire existence of Unison League where I highly, highly, highly recommend players to spawn. And the reason why is there are hardly any previous armors that give dual attack. Dual attack is quite rare. The only one that I can think of off the top... Actually, no, I just thought of another one. So, I think I'm in the wrong... Yeah, let me go here. The only ones that I can think of off the top of my head are these two. This one gives dual attack, and it's a 41 cost. And the other one is in this branch here, which is the 38 cost. So in all of the history of Unison League, in all of the years it's been around, like 12 plus years now, there have only been a few instances where they have ever come out with just dual attack. This doesn't just give dual attack though. It also gives resurrection in a single opener, which is not only really unheard of, but I think it's probably where Unison League is going. They're probably going to re-update a lot of our old things. And this combination is unreal. I'll just explain it in a minute, but there's quite a few pieces of armor that give resurrection. There's a lot of them actually, but it's been a while since they've released some, if I remember correctly, some fire monster or some fire gear. Like this one is the 38 cost resurrection that I constantly use. And then there's a fire one. I think it's this one. Yeah. So there are quite a few that it has come out, and I believe it's come out more in quite a more many more times than dual attack, but the combination has never come out before. Dual attack and resurrection has never been together. This gear is unreal. In PvE, it's really, really good. In PvP, it's really, really good. And in guild battle, it's really, really good. I believe that this gear is required for every single player in the game. The reason is because of its versatility. There are instances where you need dual attack, and in order to apply dual attack, you have to remove some other opener. The other category is quite expansive. There are a lot of different openers that you can run. So if we're just like, this is an other opener. You can only max out on 2 other openers. But for example, if you don't have 100% uni resistance and you wanted uni resistance, you could get something like Reliance opener, which is, it prevents a single instance of unison reduction. This can win you a racing. In olden days, people used to run these all the time. Now it's a little bit less common because you can get 100% unison resistance. But in the olden days, people would run these and it would win guild battles because the person who didn't get uni downed would win the race. Things like, you can run things like Ward now. Ward leaves you with 1 HP. So if you get hit and you would die, you would be left with 1 HP. Now you can stack Ward and resistance, Ward and resurrection at the same time. But never before have you been able to use resurrection, dual attack, and Ward. And dual attack is required for so many players. In fact, in guild battles, dual attack applies to your backline as well. So for example, if you are in the backline and you're not even racing, but you're in the backline, your dual attack will apply to those 3 abilities. One of those abilities gives your teammate cost. That has won guild battles. There has never been a time in all of my existence where I have played Unison League and dual attack wasn't one of the most powerful abilities in guild battles ever. Not only is it really good for guild battles, but it is also incredibly powerful for PvE and for PvP. Having the ability, so for example, a lot of players used to run the Purgatorium strat where you would use Furter and then Purgatorium, and there was nothing they could do to defend unless they guarded or they hit you with some time slice like Time Spellbook. But it was really rare to get hit with Time Spellbook. It was more rare, or it was more common for people to just instantly target you and kill you, or for them to guard in order to protect. Having dual attack is incredibly powerful because it allows you to use another Purgatorium. It allows you to use other abilities afterwards. But just in general, being able to use the same ability twice is really, really good. And there's no reason to ever not have dual attack in almost any quest. But you do need resurrection in almost every quest, right? So most players will not have an up-to-date resurrection. So this is an up-to-date resurrection that gives you lots of stats. But there's also no reason to never have dual attack for any PvE match, for any PvP match. So you already need resurrection. Now you can do resurrection, dual attack, and ward or something else. But this is incredible. I would say this gear is 100% required. And it's not too expensive. It's around 600 gems to get the monster, and it's probably around 100 or 250 to 300 gems to guarantee a defense gear. Now, there are very few times where I say every single player in the game needs this, but this is one of those times. I believe that this is true. Now, will they come out with this gear again? Probably in a couple of years, they will. So what they did when dual attack first came out was dual attack came out and then they never released it again. However, these old, every single spawn has old gear in it. This is 44 cost gear and this is 43 cost gear. It would come back. A lot of these, like the resurrection stuff and the dual attack stuff came back, but you'd have to spawn and it would be one of these gears. So maybe in a year or two, or maybe in 3 years, they will release this gear as a secondary piece of gear, not this, as a secondary piece of gear of a spawn. Will they release this again? Probably never. So this is one of the ways that Unison League makes money is by applying FOMO to their player base. And it is one of the things that I hate most about Unison League. I think FOMO is abusive to younger people. But if you're an adult, I don't really care what you do with your money or your time, whatever. But for children, I don't like FOMO. And that's the main reason why I'm against FOMO. But unfortunately, this is probably one of those times where you will need 250 to 250 to around 400 gems. That's probably how many gems it'll take you to spawn this. I am gonna spawn this, but yeah, that's unfortunate. But it is a really, really good piece of gear. Required. Now, is this one worth spawning? I don't think so. Anything that's not 45 cost. We're basically halfway through 45 cost. So in my opinion, there's no reason to go backwards and get some of 44 cost gear. Now, is this gear worth getting? The Anima gear is interesting. I think that if you don't have Anima gear, for new players, the Anima gear is fantastic. And this does not look like too expensive of a spawn. Not this one. 5,000. It'll probably cost you, I didn't actually do the math for this one. I'm just going to assume to get 5,000 will probably cost 300-ish gems, maybe more. But having 1 or 2 Anima gear pieces is really nice because it gives you 2 element in everything. And this is something that you can use for years. Or I guess probably not years anymore because it's 44 cost, but you can still use this for probably another year or two. And it doesn't require anything to stack. So that's also really, really nice. So you can just throw this in on all of your sets, your PvE and your guild battle sets to just fill if you don't have good gear. So for new players, the Anima gear is fantastic, and I do recommend it. For any regular players who have been playing for a while, it's not worth it right now because it's older gear. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'll probably make a video of me spawning this, and then I will do some other things, and I'll catch you guys later. But thanks for showing up, and I'll see you guys later.